Hello, bird nerds. I'm Grant Williams. I am a bird nerd. Something different for us today on the Bird Emergency. I'm very pleased to introduce Ricki Coughlan to you. And Ricki is the energy and the brains and the artist. Because there's a lot of art in AussieWild.com.au. But Ricki is teaching people how to be twitchers. And one of the things that features quite prominently on part one, the introductory page for part one for her course, is this little beauty. So we're going to find out how to get the best out of everything that's in here. Hi, Ricki. Thanks for being on the Bird Emergency.
Yeah, hi Grant, and thanks for having me along, and hello to everybody who's listening or viewing.
Well, it's a little bit different because we usually talk about a particular bird and why they're suffering, having problems, and I generally talk to a boffin, an academic or a researcher about a particular bird. But let's just share the pure joy of being a birder today. What prompted you to start a course that is just basically bird watching? Tell us about it.
Well, I guess it goes back a fair way because I've been running tours since the late 90s and I guess I got picked up to take the role on of warden at Broome Bird Observatory back in 2004, 2005. And there I really got the bug for running tours and that. So if I wasn't already very addicted to it, I was after I went to Broome, and I came back to Sydney. I wanted to complete tertiary studies, so in ornithology. And so I came back to Sydney, completed that, and was working for some years as an avian consultant on the northern beaches of Sydney. And running some tours up there, doing a lot of tour work for the local councils up there. And I set up a citizen science project for monitoring the shorebirds of Long Reef, which is a significant rocky headland on the northern beaches of Sydney, and a large aquatic reserve. And I guess there, in the course of doing these things, you start to meet a lot of people who are a little interested in birds, a little on the fringe, and as well as some pretty hardcore birders. And round about then too, I was asked to maybe put some educational programs together for what was called Birds Australia at the time, and now of course is BirdLife. And I put one together called Little Brown Birds, because Little Brown Birds is the name of many a bird.
Yeah. But we love the little brown birds.
Yeah. Well, really, these birds, this assemblage of birds that form generally what we call the acanthizids, but also includes the malurids or fairy wrens. So, you've got your gerygonies, your scrub wrens, your thornbills, all those guys that pretty much all look the same when you're starting out, or, when I know a lot of beginners will complain like it's not even in the field guide. And there was a bit of a need for that, and it really it was very, very popular, and we ran quite a few of those courses for the what was then called the Birds Australia Southern region of New South Wales. And so as time went on, and I moved up onto the northern rivers of New South Wales and was running little tours up there, but the itch to be in Sydney came back, so here I am. I returned here about 5 or 6 years ago, and not that long ago I started running bird tours again, and the focus is very much on lyrebirds here in Sydney, for me at least. I run tours in the Royal National Park where lyrebirds are a big thing, but there is a very diverse avifauna because the Royal National Park preserves a very diverse lot of landscape and soil and vegetation. I started running some little brown bird workshops again, and it became very obvious that the real issue for a lot of people is actually how to describe a bird even. So people often, and we all know this as birders, people come and they say, look, I've got this bird that visits my balcony every day, and the description is just wild.
It's kind of greyish around the back, but
Yeah.
I noticed a bit that was a bit browny grey, a bit more round on the front and near the neck.
Yeah. So nobody really knows how to look at birds, was what I found, because they don't know topography, feather topography, and the soft parts, hard parts, all of this kind of thing. People become very lost because they can't describe it, and
Right.
and they don't really know what they're looking at, is what I've found when they start talking about tails and wings, and they do so in a very odd way. So I thought,
sorry, I'll just stop you there, because I think we'll sort of try and step through it, and I've got a few visual aids that I want to use as well to have a bit of fun. But who? The obvious question is, who should take this course? Now, your next course starts in the last week of May, so people have got plenty of time if they want to enrol, and we'll get the addy kind of bit out of the way right up front, that you can enrol.
yes,
And it's what did we say? I think it's 6 parts, isn't it? So
yes, 6 parts.
It's in 6 parts, so it's approximately $110 a part. So that's just to give people an idea of the chunk of change. Who should do it, and what's the time commitment that someone is going to have to put into doing it, Ricki? We'll just get the nuts and bolts out of the way, and then we'll sort of go through bit by bit.
Yeah. Well, I think who should do it is beginner birders, occasional birders, nature lovers, maybe bushwalkers, people who that go out and find themselves a little frustrated or feel that they're not getting the most out of their birding, or people who want to understand a little bit more about birds in their habitat. So not just how to find birds, learn bird calls, and be able to describe and understand the bird itself, and of course ID the bird, but to get a better picture of the bird in the habitat, the relationships with other birds, bird ecology. And even this course will even cover the evolution, biogeography, systematics of Australian birds as we get to the last module. So we begin with like clothes and binoculars and gear for bushwalking and bird watching, and we finish with that much more stratospheric area of knowledge of birds, because this gives us a complete picture and understanding of the bird in the environment, and places are a grounding, I think, from which to make further inquiry and learn a lot more about birds. So this forms very much a foundation for good, solid birding.
So so for somebody like me, who, if I see that a bird has brown coverts or a red vent, or that the primaries are black, I know what to look for. Am I going to know an awful lot of the content already? Am I probably going to want to fast forward to the evolutionary development of the families of birds? Am I going to want to skip to there, or am I going to? Is someone who's been a bird nerd most of their life going to pick up good value right the way through this course?
Look, I think if you're quite an experienced birder and you're already confident when you go in the field that you're IDing your birds, this course might be a lot of it might be a little bit too elementary, because some of it is about reading the forest, and I guess when you walk into a forest, how to read the surroundings and some of the bird craft. And I think most people work out fairly quickly that you need, for instance, if you're walking through the forest, you work out what kind of forest you're in, what kind of activities are going on the season, time of year, so where birds are likely to be. And you'll have your binoculars a little bit pre-focused. So I generally at the moment, if I'm walking in a big forest, 15 metres away from me. So as soon as I see that bird, I'm onto it.
Can I just take that point up a little bit? This is something that always makes me giggle when I go birding with other people, is that everybody's got a bias about what they think they will see or what they're actually wanting to see when they go into a new environment. And I didn't realise it for a long time, but I used to regularly bird with one mate, and he never saw it, like he was just blind to the birds that flit around the edge of a canopy. You know, the white-naped honeyeaters and things like that. Never saw them. But tree creepers, bang, wouldn't miss one. Anything that was at his head height or a bit chunky, he would see, but he just had peripheral blindness. I could point out a pardalote in the canopy, or a mistletoe bird, or a honeyeater, and he was a good birder too. He could ID them once he got a good look, but actually out there just doing their thing, he had this blindness to them. But a raptor, he would never miss a raptor. But I think that was just a headspace that he was in. You've done this for a lot of people in a lot of locations. Do people have their little box that they fit into when they go birding?
Oh, yeah. I think everyone does, but it always comes down to practicing a little bit of immersion. So when you walk into a forest habitat, it's good to spend a few moments to just begin to listen, to smell, to see what's around you, to really soak it in and take in the vibe of your surroundings. And it prepares you to be able to engage more deeply and more fully. And it's, to me, bird watching it's almost a meditation. I walk very, very slowly, and I think bird watching is perhaps not the right term. For me, it's bird listening. And I think for many of us, this is what we discover, that it's really bird listening. And we watch more with the naked eye than we do with binoculars. But binoculars is where we take it in and where the special sauce is when it comes to birding. So, yeah, I find that building a sense of immersion into your surroundings helps you to pick up everything, to be aware of what's in the periphery at all levels, from, your cursorial forages in the leaf litter, through the ground cover, the shrub layer, the mid-story canopy, the whole lot.
How do you teach the bird calls and that immersive element in a structured course where people are not sitting in the classroom? Like they're not there with you.
You begin with basics. And so you begin with some of the most common calls and the calls that are repetitive. This is a 6-month course. So there's 6 modules and it runs over 6 months. And each of them is put together in a way that serves the rest of it. So on day 1, you get an ebook. A couple of days later, when you've had time to read it, we do a Zoom meeting. So we all get together, we discuss what we got out of the book, and then we go and put that to practice in the field. And from there, everyone gets an assignment. And the assignment can be very, very simple, but the idea is that it reinforces, gets you out there thinking, working, hopefully making mistakes, because mistakes is where the learning is.
For sure. Now you're in Sydney, and Australia's a big place. So in your next intake, if you get people in from Perth, from Tassie, from say northwest Victoria, tropical Queensland, and northwestern Australia, all enrolling, do you have a look at your enrolment list and then kind of rejig some of the content so that everybody, because obviously someone who's in Geraldton isn't going to want to have a whole lot of lyrebird content?
Yeah. Well, I think from the beginning of this course, because this is like the first time I've run this course, so this particular course. So if I start to get inquiries from people who are interstate, I'll have to look at how I'm going to structure that differently, because there is that field trip element of it where we go out and, for instance, in the first part of the course, it'll be going out. We'll be just doing practicing, getting your binoculars on that bird, because for a lot of people, when you take out a lot of bird watchers, and as I do, you find a lot of people tag along and it's the first time they've gone birding. They can't actually get their binoculars on the bird at all. They struggle with that. So we're going to learn about those elements of using the tools, both the physical sensorial tools that we all have, but also the tools that extend our capacities. So, how to use binoculars will be a big part of the first part of the course. So how we do that...
Let me put you to the test. Sorry, Ricki, I just want to jump in because I don't know if our contemporaneous watchers who are with us in the studio can hear that coming through. Have we got ravens or have we got crows in the background at your place?
Me, none.
That can't be my place, I'm hearing. Oh, they're gone now.
Oh, actually, I just heard a distant, Australian raven.
There it is. It's going on at your place.
That's slightly higher. It's going to be higher than the call you get down in Melbourne. Yeah. So, we get the Australian raven up here.
Yeah, I just wanted to test you out on that one because I could hear it quite clearly there for a minute.
Well, it's kind of muffled a little here, so I'm impressed you were able to hear that.
Oh, what does that say? I'm very good with my ears.
You have to watch it because not far from here there is also playing fields, and you could get the odd roar of the crowd.
Or the sporting fuck.
Yeah, that's one.
which we all know and love. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you there. So, getting the best out of your binoculars, I think, is something that a lot of people maybe spend years and years as bird watchers before they actually learn properly what their binoculars do. I inherited as a kid a pair of binoculars that one of my uncles used to take to the horse races. And it's very heavy and it had a slightly clunky eyepiece on one side that you could adjust the magnification on one side. And I don't reckon I ever got them right for my eyes. It wasn't until I bought another pair, maybe 20 years into my bird watching life, that I actually thought, hey, binoculars are pretty bloody good, you know. They're pretty useful.
Yeah.
So, is there a knack to getting comfortable with your binoculars? And well, let's put you on the spot. Are there bad binoculars?
Oh well, there's binoculars and there's field glasses. A lot of people turn up for bird watching tours with field glasses, which are those little tiny things that have lenses, but not prisms. So when we're talking about something like my little toys here, these are like Trinovids. And I find these excellent. They're a premium, but where's the camera? They're premium, but you wouldn't call them the alpha binoculars. They're not like the more expensive lines of, Swaros or the Noctavid, which is a Leica one, or some of the higher range Zeiss bins. But you pay around about $1,800 for these. And for me, the quality is as good as you need in a forest, and you pay a whole lot more for not a lot more. So I figure $1,800 for a pair of these is fantastic. They're very simple. You've, of course, got your 2 barrels. You've got your adjustable eye cups, and everyone can sort out fairly quickly where they like to set themselves with their eye cups to maximise the eye relief with your lenses, with your objectives. You've got your focal ring in the middle, and you've got your diopter here. So you just take people through that broad system of what you've got. Your objective, your eyepiece, your focal ring, your diopter, your adjustable eye caps. That's pretty much it. And so once you're there, it's a matter of getting people to adjust the angle between the barrels to get that eye width right. So you bring it down to like you're looking through a single monocular barrel, if you like. So it merges the view of both eyes. And once you've got that, you simply close your right eye, focus on an object, say 15 meters away, get it nice and sharp, close your left eye and use this diopter to adjust the focus on your right eye on exactly the same object. Then your binoculars are set. And you may have to now and again do a slight tweak, but generally that you should be good to go for the day. I think, so once you're set up with that, then it's simply a matter of doing a little practice, actually getting your eyes on the bird. And it's a really good idea if you see the bird to not go, oh, there it is, look down at your binoculars and try and get it on the bird, which is what a lot of people do. You've got to keep your eye on the bird and bring your binoculars up to your eyes. And that is also often the moment when the damn bird flies, as we all know. And you bring your binoculars up and it's gone. But that is why also one should keep their binoculars focused on the ideal distance for where they're seeing most birds today. So, and that can depend a lot on conditions and the environment the birds are going for. And then it's just a matter of, got that focused on that, bring them up, and you'll pretty much get the bird every time with only the minimal amount of focus required. So the course also covers binocular selection, how they work, how to maintain them, all the good stuff you need to know to make sure that your tools of the trade stay in their best nick and you can use them optimally. Big ad.
I wanted to go back to that comment you made just sort of at the start of that section, that there are field glasses and there are binoculars. Now, when you've run tours sort of all over the place and especially back at Broome, when beginners rock up, do most people have field glasses thinking that they've got binoculars? Do you find that that's really, really common?
Yeah, you get a fair few people that turn up with the little tiny field glasses. Yeah, you do, and I guess most people call them binoculars. You buy them from the binocular section of the camera store or the scope shop, or
they're generally advertised as binoculars.
Yeah. But binoculars really rely on a couple of prisms. Because when the light comes through a pair of binoculars, through your objective lens, it's called your objective because it's closer to the object, and this is called your eyepiece because it's closer to your eye, so it kind of makes sense. But the light comes through. It's
not the front. That is not the front. That is the objective end.
Back, if you like, or we want to be really technical. And so the light comes in. It's inverted through this first lens. So how to get it back up the right way? Well, they use a couple of prisms. And they used to have, if you remember the old school submarine commander binoculars that they used to make that were very wide and had a prism out the side and then in, we now move them to what's called a roof prism.
That was like my first binoculars.
Yeah.
Like that.
Mine too in the 70s. Yeah. I had a pair of Tasco binoculars and they were the submarine commander style, as I call them.
And they were heavy.
Yes.
That's what I remember most.
Well, even I remember my last pair of Leicas was the old tank-proof ones, and they were also a Leica Trinovid. I've got them stashed away. and they're quite heavy. They're like a house brick, whereas these guys are very light. So love them. Yeah. So this is what's called a roof prism system. So the prisms are aligned in here, because what happens is the light goes through one prism, turns at 90 degrees. So it's inverted, gets turned 90, hits another prism, goes another 90 degrees, and comes back out through the eyepiece the right way up. Which is a really simplistic way of describing it. And I'm sure that's not 100% accurate, because it is passing through more lenses. But the roof prisms serve to take an object that gets initially inverted to the right way up and the right way round by the time it reaches your eye at the other end of the binocular barrel.
I think I'm going to have to talk to a Mr. Leica or Mr. Swarovski or something to
well, they're the good guys.
To actually understand what engineering is involved in a good pair of binoculars, because I'm sure we've all had that misfortune where you get a bit of sand in a moving part, and then they're never ever the same. So. But that's for another day. We'll talk about
that's if you're
binocular
sure
care and mechanics and whatnot. But let's go back. Let's go back to the kind of things that you're going to be teaching. You've broken the course into 6 modules, and it's a 6-month course. So people are going to, I would expect, really develop their skills over the time that they are doing the course as they move through. So what's the logic between the 6 parts? And let's go through them.
Right, okay.
Where do we start?
I better grab my course prospectus and have a bit of a
Part 1,
look.
laying the groundwork.
Yeah. So, part 1, I'm going to put my glasses on because I'll completely forget my dates. What have we got here? So, the course kicks off on May 24, and that's part 1, and begins with an ebook, Zoom conference, and in there, the assignment's going to be binocular basics, and it's going to be a real quick, easy one, that one, and because it's just practice and before we go birding. So that in the case of the first one, the assignment is before and during the field trip and all done. And but this course also covers binocular selection and how to pick a good pair of binoculars, because a lot of people, like, when you buy a pair of binoculars, you want to know how many times it's taking you to fully rotate that.
So the gearing, it's really how the adjuster is geared.
Because sometimes if it's too much or too little, it can mean that you're getting onto something. You're constantly trying to focus, and it can be a lot more work. And
that's when everyone that you're birding with goes, "Oh, wow, did you just see that orange-bellied parrot? Oh, it's gone." And you just get focused in just as it goes. So,
that's why you want to have your binoculars focused on a particular range, and then, you're on to them quick. If someone says, there it is, you can go, and you've got it. That's very useful. It's also very useful to know and learn which way you turn the things, if it's further away or closer. So we all know if it's further away, you're hooking around towards the right, and if it's closer, you're hooking around towards the left. But with binoculars, when you purchase them, I think it's very important that this be smooth. So your focal ring should be very nice and smooth. And you shouldn't have to turn it more than, I do around about 2 and a bit full rotations to go from the closest focal length to the furthest in a pair of these. I've got some Zeiss Terras as well, which are my loaners. So I have a few pairs of loaner binoculars going from Bushnells to Zeiss, and a little bit more on the Zeiss, but all very good they are like a top mid-range pair of binoculars as Ice Terror, and but I do find you've got to do a little bit more work on the focal ring the whole time you're out birding, and that can be a little bit, just getting that focus all the time. Yeah, it's just more work.
Yeah.
So that's something important. You want to be able to look in and make sure that the eye cups. I always go for, you want that, where are we? That click, that stepping in your eye cups so that you can match them. Old school ones where you're pulling them out, you don't necessarily get an even adjustment, and it can really play havoc in the field.
I must say, Ricki, it's a long time since I've been out trying binoculars, but I think I reckon I'd probably get a bit of a surprise now if I went and tried the top line binoculars to see how good they are compared to how ordinary some of them were.
Some good Swarovskis are like, wow.
I wouldn't know, unfortunately. I want to just bring up a couple of things that you've got in the part 1 section of the course, and that is keeping records, and you've got the issue of playback, birdsong, and birding ethics and etiquette. I don't want you to go over what's in the course, but just give me a very quick summation of what you think about the use of playback. When is it appropriate?
Playback. Sometimes, if you're going to if you're in the middle of nowhere where very few people ever go, you're after that grass wren, why not try a little playback? But if you're in an area where, for instance, where we've had trouble, I believe it was Barrington Tops to memory, people trying to chase down noisy scrub birds and bristle birds and all of these real skulkers, and that have a very small range, or have a remnant population in an area where people know they can get them. You get a lot of people turning up doing playback, and this begins to shape the habit of the birds. And this is not desirable.
Well, also, people have to understand what the call is and what it is saying to the birds without us anthropomorphizing too much. But it's basically someone coming in and aggressively smashing at your front door. Are you home? Are you bloody home?
Yes.
That's what you're doing. So, bloody hell. I mean, I've got real problems with it. I've used it.
Yeah.
But virtually, I certainly wouldn't take speakers out and do anything amplified. If I might play the callback from the app, from the that would be it. But not if you knew the birds are around. Well, why aren't people using that little squeaker thing? Remember that little
the little red squeaker.
That was the best thing I got given that, I think, when I was 8. I think I got that for my 8th birthday. Best thing I ever had. It split in the end, of course. It got wet, and then I used it when it was wet, and it split, being some kind of English wood, I think. But that worked. The birds would come and have a look and see what it was, but it wasn't like you were demanding their attention. They would come and be inquisitive, but you weren't broadcasting a particular call that, in the language of the birds, is telling them something in particular. So it's vexed, though, isn't it?
Well, it really is. It's a little bit like fishing. When you come up, we're doing all little squeaks and popping noises with our mouth or with our hands and mouth and these kinds of things to attract birds over, or to maybe get that scrub wren to come out and have a look. And I'm very good with bird calls and can pretty much call in a lot of birds. And I wouldn't be the only birder that has that capability to be able to go out and whistle a bird in. But this isn't a whole lot different from playback. And I know not long ago I was recording some lyrebirds because we're moving into breeding season now. So I was recording some on a trail. And I thought, oh, how good was that one? And, I played some of it back. And next thing I had the lyrebird charging over to look what was going on. I'm like, oh, that's playback.
Well, that's right. If he was just saying, this is my place, don't bloody come here, and you've recorded it and then you play it back, he thinks, who's muscling into my place? I mean,
absolutely. And so this can cause stress, but it can cause wasted energy.
Yeah, and aggression, stress, wasting, all those detrimental things that day trippers don't think about.
Yeah. You get little scrub wrens stay, beneath, the ground cover a lot. Of course, we do know they come out and they have a chat and depending on the season, they'll be more visible than other times of the year. But if they don't want to be seen, there's probably reasons for that.
Well,
that they don't want to be predated.
well, that's the other thing that I don't think people think about. If you're listening intently for a scrub wren call to see a scrub wren or a thornbill, there probably is a goshawk or a sparrowhawk hanging around that's listening too. So if you're calling birds out for no other reason than you just want to have a look at them, you are potentially putting them in mortal danger as well.
Well, there is that element. And I think we have to understand the seasonal nature of birds. And if you want to see, scrub wrens, white-browed scrub wren, for instance, truly the best time to see them is through those warmer months when they're active and they're breeding, and especially once the young are out of the nest, and you can see great numbers of them getting around. And, that's the time of year to do it. But you shouldn't expect the gratification of every time you go birding to be able to see all the birds that would be visible across a whole calendar year. So that's part of the joy of nature, is living with nature's calendar and observing the other elements of nature in the forest around you. When the butterflies emerge, what are the birds doing? And what's flowering and what are the birds doing? Is there lerp in the treetops? Is there manna? Checking all of these other signs that make up this amazing, profoundly amazing world of nature that's all around us, and tuning into that rather than just going out to muscle your way into an environment and see every bird.
And get a tick. All right.
And get a tick. Or a good photo. That's another issue.
Well, that is a huge issue. Part 2, you've called Foundations of Birding, and I guess this is where you're going to talk about the skills that you can actually learn and practice before you even learn how to identify any particular bird. This is about physiology as much as anything else, isn't it, for birds?
Yeah.
Morphology and physiology.
Yeah, because now we get into what is a bird and how to look at a bird. So what is that bird topography? What's the feathers, the hard bits, the soft parts, all of the terminologies. And so understanding avian anatomy, also understanding, and I think is a matter of interest, and I think to bring us deeper and further into the lives and the worlds of birds, is understand a little about how they see, how they breathe, move and fly. And most people, most of us certainly don't understand how a bird stays aloft, really. We take it for granted that they fly and we watch them move by, and a lot of people will be able to tell you a little bit of the basics of how a wing might work. But when it comes down to the mechanics and the physics of flight, it's a very, very fascinating area of study on its own. Then, of course, there's bird song. And it's really important to know bird song. And as you progress in your birding, you start to learn of the different calls at different times of year that become more prevalent in a bird's song, how a tree creeper's song will change across a year. And when they start to do more churring and high-pitched, that high-pitched whistle that you'll hear is, say, a white-throated tree creeper, and these kinds of things. So how they change, how spotted pardalote call changes across the calendar year. is another beautiful thing. And it tells us about the seasons. And so, yeah, understanding bird song and how they actually physically produce sound is really quite fascinating. So, and it ties in a little bit with how birds breathe, which is nothing like we do. So quite fascinating. And that all brings us really into how to look at birds, how to ID them, behavioural terminologies too, and also a few birding terminologies too, like when, for instance, we talk about a very confiding bird. And so if I say a bird's very confiding, most regular birders are going to understand what I mean, and we can have a conversation, a meaningful conversation, and share knowledge better.
That means you can call them up at 10 o'clock after a bad date when your boyfriend's stormed out and you've had an argument. So,
yeah.
You can
Something like that.
Hey, now, have you got fig birds at your place?
We do get fig birds, and we get a lot when they're in season and very few when they're not.
I thought I heard one before, so...
Oh, no, not at the moment. You may hear the odd magpie. We've got a few of them warbling.
Oh, I know the magpie.
Yeah, actually, yeah. But I don't know how they come through the microphone. So you could almost, I just think you got a fig bird.
Yeah, probably. I just thought I heard I thought I was hearing Brisbane coming through the microphone there for a minute.
No.
You mentioned that there's a field trip excursions that you do as part of the course. So does that mean you're limited with how many people you can enrol? And really, because the field trip is the Royal National Park, your catchment is really going to be Sydney, isn't it, for this?
Oh yeah. Well, most tours are Royal National Park. There are tours in Western Sydney that take in a couple of reserves as well as Castlereagh Reserve. And then we go down the coast to the hilltops above Kiama region there to Barren Grounds. And they're the three locations. So a little south of Sydney, and then quite south of Sydney down to Barren Grounds, and sort of up into northwestern Sydney.
So are you limited to a dozen participants?
Well, I think 10 to 12 would probably be the max on something like this. These aren't traditional bird watching tours that we go on really, though. These are
they're study tours, aren't they?
They're study tours. So everyone comes out and we work, and people will take turns leading, and people will take turns working on skills. So we'll work on skill sets, and we'll work on what we're trying to observe or take in at a certain time. And these are really times, and I encourage people to have a go and make a mistake. Go out, get it wrong, because that's where the learning is. So we want to go out there and get things wrong, and then so we get them right in the long term.
That's right. And even the best birders make assumptions sometimes about what they're looking at, because we all get habituated into what we've seen and how a bird behaves. So sometimes we're all a bit casual with our identification, and then you'll hear something and you go, hang on, that can't be right. Or something you are sure is a particular species is acting in a way you go, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And then you look a little bit harder and you go, I've never noticed that little bit of russet around the laws, or oh gee, I've never noticed that they were a bit that shaggy, and then you go, oh well, it's actually something else.
You get this in a different habitat. You see, when you go to a location, and when I go to, say, I do a lot of birding in the Royal National Park, and then I go up to Castlereagh Reserve or Wianamata Reserve out in northwestern Sydney, and suddenly there's a whole new bunch of birds there, and I have to spend some time just going, retuning in and going, oh yes, well, it's the fuscus honeyeater here, it's not, whatever we've got down in the Royal National Park at this time of year. And so tuning into those bird calls again, it takes a little time, and you know, it kind of like ticks over in your head. And I'm not the only person who's described it as being almost like the reels on a poker machine. It's sort of like it rolls through your head till you finally go, everything lines up and you go, it's that bird. And so you've got to be a little kind to yourself, give you a little bit of time to acclimatize again and get yourself set before you start making idiotic calls. Because otherwise you think, oh, it's this. And then, of course, it's not. And yeah.
But you've also got to be aware that sometimes it might be what you think would be an idiotic call, because vagrants, stragglers, unusual meteorological conditions, bushfires, climate change, all these things are having an effect on where birds are and what they're doing. So that comes back to that essential skill that you are going to teach people, is to actually understand what you're looking at and be able to correctly describe it when it comes to where the colour is, what the feathers actually are, what area of the body the coloration or whatever actually is. Because quite often your memory is very, very bad when you come back and look at a different field guide when you come home 4 or 5 hours later and you go, oh, could have been that.
That's how you got to know those key field marks or diagnostic features. So especially if you say looking at cuckoos and you see odd things. So it's a good idea to know what are the things to look at in the group of cuckoos, and especially if you're getting like juvenile cuckoos and adult, like, for instance, the juvenile fantail cuckoo can look, it's that very sort of like this dark brownish thing with a whole mixture of, speckles and blobs of color on the tail and this sort of thing when you just look at it quickly. But it could also almost be a brush cuckoo, an adult brush cuckoo, which has sort of got that sort of like the finer lining along the breast, and but the rest of it can look very similar. So it's a cuckoo. I'm going to look. It looks like a fantail cuckoo. Has it got a prominent yellow eye ring? Has it got this? And it's the same as little brown birds, and differentiating them, knowing that what to look for, that single and sometimes two features you need to put it together with certainty. And that's what it's about. It's understanding whole problematic groups of birds. And cuckoos can be quite problematic, and little brown birds can be quite problematic. Some of the honey eaters can be too. But it's all a matter of putting things in context of season as well, and being careful not to do what a friend of mine used to call the voice of God statement, like saying, well, birds do this, or this species does this. Yeah. And then you'll immediately be proven wrong by that bird doing something quite different. Or so you can't. Presumption's awful around birds. You'll take a fall every time.
Yeah, that's the egg on face statement.
Yeah. That's you call it the egg on face statement. Yeah. Well, I've worn it. I think we all have. Yeah.
When do you think people can claim that they have made an identification? At how much, I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know this person. Where there'll be 4 or 5 of you standing there with binoculars, and you are very quick. You all fix on something that's on the outskirts of the outside of the eucalypt, just flitting around. There's 3 or 4 of them, and someone goes quite confidently, "That's such and such a honey eater," and then is off. That they're no longer interested, and then the others are there going, "Actually, you know what? I don't think it is."
Yeah. So, well, it's time for that. Are you sure?
Yeah. It is when we're talking about records, and this is a little bit outside of the course, but claiming a record and a positive identification. How much confirmation is enough if you're just on your own? Do you have a checklist that you sort of work through in your own mind so that if it could be this, it could be that? Or are you not, or are you a bit like me? I don't really care, right? Because I'm not submitting it anywhere and saying, look what I saw. And unless I thought it was really significant that it was recorded, like a greater flamingo, which I discovered is the greater flamingo is in the Australian Bird Guide. So.
Oh, yeah, it appears on an outlying island, I believe, or something.
Yeah, that's right. One.
Well, interesting, considering we believe flamingos may have even evolved in Australia. So,
well, that's a whole other thing, isn't it?
That is a whole other story. Yeah, that's maybe part 6 of this course, but which hasn't been written yet. I think when it comes to identification, if you are contributing to bird data or eBird, these kinds of areas where researchers are perhaps likely to start looking, then we should be fairly confident before we start putting observations in. And I think it's really important as a birder not to get your ego involved, not to believe that your entire ego is built into your observation or what you've declared or identified as a bird, and to accept I can be wrong. And I think everybody can be wrong about their birds, and you have to own up to it, and you have to get other input. And but if those diagnostic features are there, you can make the claim and say, here they are. In certain light, these things can vary from certain angles, and in certain conditions, these things can change, as we all know. But yeah, a bird identification, for instance, if you see some kind of firetail finch go past rapidly, if you got red on both ends, you can be fairly sure that you've probably got yourself a red-browed finch or red-browed firetail. I prefer finch, by the way, in the case of that bird. And I think
too.
they do in the Australian Bird Guide too, which I'm really glad to see. And they still have Nankeen kestrel instead of Australian kestrel, which we're all old school, I guess.
But I don't get hung up on that too much because the bird isn't out there going, I'm a Nankeen kestrel, I'm a Nankeen kestrel. The bird's just going, grasshopper, lunch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is all on us. This stuff's all on us. It's quite humorous. They probably call themselves something quite different.
I do think it's a good idea for us all to know which bird we're talking about. So you need to. This is my view. I think a young bird watcher today, someone who is doing what I did in the 70s, which is learning excitedly all these new kinds of birds, you need to know what they used to be called, so that when you run into the old fart like me down at the park, we can talk about the same bird, but it might be different names, but we both know what we're talking about. For instance, the eastern shrike tit, which I can see in the background, which is the crested shrike tit.
Yes.
So it's the same bird.
Yeah. Well, it's an assemblage really of the crested shrike tits, I guess, when we talk about the shrike tits. And this, I might have this wrong, but I think that they have been split and lumped a couple of times in their career.
Yeah, I think I don't think they know about it, but I'm sure I think there's been 2 revisions in the time that I've been aware of them, and frankly, I don't care. I don't
involved in Australia. I'm going to call it a crested shrike tit, and if it's a varied satella. There's a varied satella. We may say,
Funnily enough, that was the page that I just opened up to while I was. I was going to look and see how many ticks do I get for a satella these days. I only get 1.
That's pretty crummy, isn't it? Yeah. So people's lists have been, depending on when you want to, claim your list from. But I actually, because I'm a little bit of phylogenetic species concept person. I would claim each of the what they call subspecies as a single tick.
Mate, I'm going to even claim races if I'm.
Well,
if I'm going to
I
get
don't
into...
call it. I said subspecies, and you might have
Yeah.
noticed with some halting
I know,
style, because I prefer race.
I actually I actually was hoping that I could channel Maggie Watson and we could talk about a Klein as well. But
Oh well, yeah. Well,
so,
that clinal variation. It's something like, if you hear a willy wagtail at Melbourne Airport this morning, and then fly to Broome, and your willy wagtail or your magpie lark will sound very different, or your grey shrike thrush, they'll all sound quite different. There'll be a different resonance, and so as you go across the country, and of course, call is also a diagnostic feature of a bird. So where do we draw the line with that? So
well, if we're going to use call, we'd have to say North Queenslanders are a different species, eh?
yeah. So calls do vary as well. I think I don't know if a lot of studies been done in clinal variation for nests, but that would be
as in nest construction and nest design.
Yeah,
and nest materials.
Components, components as well as structure. If there's any clinal variation in that among birds, would be fascinating to know. And I'm not sure that's been an area that's had a lot of attention.
I don't know. I'd go out, be a bit controversial here. I think that's really interesting for someone to be able to do a PhD on, but I would not be the least bit concerned or interested, really, that a willy wagtail in Melbourne has a different kind of nest than they do in northern Australia, because there's different stuff on the ground, so they kind of have to adapt.
Yeah, well, it's like you can places close to civilization. If you go looking for striated thornbills, you'll notice their nests will often include man-made fibres.
Yeah, straws and string and
bits of thread off clothing. Sort of like fabric threads.
Yep.
But you go into the bush, and of course further away, and they'll be made of all those nice little stringy bark strips and looking very attractive. Magpies,
I do the local birds a favour. It's getting cold now, coming into May, so I'll let my hair grow a bit long. What hair I have left, but it gets a bit fluff and chops around the side. And then as soon as I see the honey eaters and sometimes we get a thornbill or two around here, if I see them looking like they're getting a bit interested in pairing up, I then get the clippers out, shave all my hair off, and then I go and dump it out under a couple of eucalypts in the park, and it's gone within a couple of hours. They've all taken it, and
really,
so
wow.
It's my contribution to the to natural history around here. So. It's nice and soft and warm. I think I'm doing something good for them.
I think you can also see difference in, say, magpies. Magpies will build nests using all kinds of bits of wire and rope and the like in urban areas, and less so once you get away from humankind.
Yeah. There's a pair of ravens nearby for me, so they're my local pair. We're an integrate of territories here, but just over the back there is a main road, and they're nesting in a spotted gum on the edge of a really busy road, and their nest year to year is a tip. They nest in the same spot, and it kind of falls apart a bit in winter with the weather, but then they put it all back together. But it's a tip. They use all sorts of plastic and you know, strips of garbage bags and all kinds of stuff that they can weave into this thing. It's an abomination, but it's what's about. It's what's blowing around everywhere, and they're using it.
Yeah. Well, why not? Yeah. So, yeah, whatever can they can make their little cradles with. That's it. So, yeah, fantastic. And so,
as long as they're not eating it, but they probably are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, perhaps not their actual nest material, but I'm guessing that there'd be a lot of urban birds who ingest a little plastic here and there.
Oh, no.
I think so. I think you know, your pigeons in the park might. I think they might get a little bit into them.
Definitely. Well, we've had a whole couple of episodes about should we feed birds, and a year ago I was feeding birds. I'm no longer feeding birds based on the expert evidence. So, but it's nice, isn't it, to bring them in and watch them. But everything we do has an effect on what they do, and sometimes we don't want to do that. Now,
kill them with kindness. Like we so want to embrace these, these beautiful creatures, and we tend to love them, and we want them in our world, and we want to share. And I always feel that the best thing is a properly positioned bird bath. Preferably not something where the local goshawk can come in with an ambit swoop
that's right,
at any time
right.
from a nearby tree, but something a little sheltered with somewhere for birds to escape to easily. A bit of shrubbery around it, and rock in the middle, that kind of bird bath.
Exactly.
That's your life's complete if you have a good bird bath.
Yeah, I think so. And there are some really good bird bath accounts on Twitter if you want to find them and see what is visiting other people. Now, let's sort of wrap up a little bit. But when we get to the end of the course, so it's 6 parts, as we've said. When we get to the end of the course, or towards the end of the course, what do you expect a beginner, and let's say a beginner adult or a beginner child has come into the course, not really familiar with any of their local birds, but they've progressed through the 6 months, they get to the end. What do you expect that somebody will then do next? Will they be a fanatic? Will they be a birding fanatic?
Oh, yeah, they're going to be. They quite possibly will be, but what they will be is a person who is equipped to learn more. I think that's the thing, because birding is a never-ending journey, as we know. It's a never-ending learning experience, and that's part of it. Otherwise, we become bored sooner or later, I guess. So it is a part of a learning experience, and I think this is about giving people the tools to learn and continue to grow as a birder. And it's once you've got all of those fundamental tools, you know how to identify a bird, what to listen for, when to listen for, how to use all your equipment, what equipment to have, what clothing to have, how to be safely and ethically in the bush and in wild landscapes. And to understand how birds work within ecologies and how they work in their calendars, and how they are what they are. So when you bring together all of this knowledge and how they came to be, and how Australia is, how Australia is the home to birds, if you like, where to find them and what to look for and when, and how this all came to be, then you are very much more equipped to go in multiple directions and learn a lot more about birds. Because, I found, like, for instance, when you do tertiary studies on birds, one of the big things that I took away was I learned how to learn more, how to study more, how to find information, where to go and look for it. And so knowing how to do that, whether you're doing it on Google or whether you're doing it in a library or whether you're doing it in the field, and what whatever you're looking for and how you wish to attain more knowledge, that should be there for everyone when they've completed the course. So you should be quite skilled and confident and able to walk in the bush. And we all get trapped. We'll all go to somewhere new and it's, was that a slaty-back thornbill, or what was that? So, but learning how to do your homework so you can go into the field and you won't get caught out. And that's what this course is about.
So it commences on May the 24th. So enrolments are open now, I'm guessing?
Enrolments are open now. You can go to my website, and I'm sure there's going to be a link to that somewhere here.
There will be, aussiewild.com.au. But of course,
that'll get you there. And you can just see, the bird watching courses there on the homepage. You can click on that, go through, and you can go onto the page, learn a lot more about it. There's prospectus, there's a form. So my advice is to get the prospectus, have a look at the terms and conditions of the course, and it's not like an iPhone terms and conditions. It's pretty basic. And then you can register for the course and pay for the course. Do it all on the site.
And I'll probably make it easy and set up a link. Actually, I will do that. So
that would be very kind of you. Thank you.
So if we once we've got this up and out, Ricki, the birdemergency.com birdwatching course will take you to Ricki's site so you can get involved. Ricki, do you want to tackle the bird emergency questions? Are you up for it?
Okay, what are the bird emergency questions?
What's your field guide of choice?
Well, for butterflies.
Good.
For butterflies,
there we go. Is that the CSIRO guide?
Yes, fantastic.
Yep.
This is the book. When you're out birding, this is, you're going to see butterflies. They are quite easy to learn. You can learn your basic butterflies, and of course they're all seasonal, so you're not inundated. And fantastic book. Also for butterflies, and many will have this wonderful tone.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Butterflies display. Beautifully illustrated book, and beautifully written. I love this book.
Who's the illustrator for that book?
That would be, I think it's Roger Kitching. And yes, just a stunning book.
Malcolm's NBN.
Yeah,
we had a bit of.
Yeah, it is not an expensive book, and
we had a bit of NBN issue there, Ricki. So who's the author and the illustrator for that one?
It's by Albert Orr and Roger Kitching.
That's right, Roger Kitching.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, Brady's Butterflies of Australia. And I think these are both CSIRO books. Certainly, this one is.
Yeah, that one's a CSIRO guide.
Yeah. Fantastic. This is the good basic one. Brady's fantastic. For birds, well, this gets interesting because we've got, and you've been waving it around, and I'm going to wave it around.
Yeah.
And it is a brilliant book, but of course they're bringing out the actual field guide version. And I don't know if you've seen that coming out.
I haven't yet, but I'm still using this one.
In the field? Well, you would, because it's lightweight and easy to carry in the field.
Yeah.
And
it's Rao Slater, Pat Slater. And
fantastic.
I've told the story a million times. I grew up on volume 1 and 2 of Peter Slater's field guides. And I think I've got Morecambe somewhere. I've got them all.
Yes, I've got them all. Yeah.
But these are the two that are always on my desk. And I think I'm emotionally attached to the Slater guide. So
because you can just put them in your pocket and go, in your back pocket and go birding, that kind of thing. This one though is cleverly called the bird guide, not the field guide.
That's right.
No, because it is just, it's a little weighty, and it's such a good book. You wouldn't put it in your backpack and wreck it. It is just such a good book. But the new one that's coming out will be of the dimensions and the layout that makes it very, very good for in the field. You can already go to the websites where this is sold and see samples of what it looks like inside. It's going to be just so specky. So I would say that one would be my choice of
That will be
book
the
for the
go-to.
field. I tend to, though, do homework. If I'm going to an area I haven't been before, I will do my homework. And then the night before and then the morning before, I'll just brush up again. I'll go in the field and I'll be able to identify the birds.
I have dreams about what I'm going to see the next day.
Oh, well, yeah. So they're good. I also have my mammals, mink horse and knights, Australian mammals, and I keep, scats, tracks, and other traces, and we've all got them.
How about apps on the phone? Have you moved over to? You haven't yet. Okay.
I have not, because I'm so often using my phone for other things in the bush. I'm either recording bird songs, or I use my phone for landscape. And it's interesting. I use my camera. I use this for butterflies as well. Fantastic butterfly shots. How
about how amazing Google is now for identifying plants using the phone? It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I wish when I studied horticulture that you could just walk around the bush and go bang. Oh wow, fair enough. That was, I mean, key guides. I'm not going to say they're dead, but boy, oh boy, the amount of work that you no longer have to do when you're out bushwalking is amazing.
It's fantastic. And
provided you've got coverage, of course. So
well, I don't do apps on my phone. I've never felt that I've needed to. And for me, I'm always thinking, I'm going to try and be looking at this bird on an app, and you're fiddling around on the thing, and then the sunlight's on the screen or something, and it's like, So
it's the calls. I find that the calls are good when you're out of an area, when you're out of your own home patch. I mean, you have to be in there for a while to get to know the calls. So the apps are good ways to learn that. How about recording your sightings? What do you make your records in the field in a notebook, and then come home and put and get on the computer and put them into eBird, or what do you do?
Well, it depends. I keep a count of my birds as I walk through the forest any day. So I'll keep a count on everything that way, like mentally. If I want to make notes, I use the voice recorder. I especially do if I'm on my own doing shorebirds and I'm surveying I'm the convener of Boat Harbour Shorebird Study Group. So, but sometimes I'll go down on my own when there aren't, all the crew who come along. And if I won't have a scriber, so I will be standing there talking into my phone just what I'm seeing. And there's usually a lot of swearing at the end of it. I'm amazed how much I swear when I'm counting. That's quite the profanities that come out of this phone. But so I use that. I will also use the compass app in the phone to grab a GPS setting off and drop it into notes. And I might type or dictate a little note and put that paste that GPS setting into it. And of course, there's always the camera, and you can now do notes. Of course, if you've got an iPhone, I'm guessing Android has a similar system where you can also take some notes and apply them to your images as well. So, or caption them if you like. So, yeah, they're the ways. I guess I really use the tools of the phone to enhance my birding a lot.
Have you bought any of those extra lenses that you can use on the iPhone to make it better for taking bird pictures?
Well, I have got the.
I've got the adapter to put on your scope or something.
Yeah, so I've got the Swarovski scope and I've got the adapter for the phone. I'm not that satisfied with it, so I've gone and bought this little fellow, and which is great for wildflowers.
Which Canon is that?
This is a Canon M50.
The M50.
No, it's the little toy one. I think they say it's for bloggers and the like. But
it's a good full frame camera, and the Mark II has just come out, but you can
This is the Mark II.
Oh, that's the Mark II. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
a brand new one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm getting the adapter for my scope, so I can just pop that on and shoot much better movies and take snapshots. And because it is great to get those records with shorebirds that way. And I've had in the past I always just used to have like a little happy snap camera, a little Nikon happy snap one, and just hold it on the lens and just take shots straight through that way. And I've got records of actually my favourite record, I guess, is a sandling in full summer plumage and one in full winter plumage. So by
from Broome, I'm guessing.
No, this was at Boat Harbour at Cronulla.
Wow, really?
In January.
In the summer plumage?
Yeah,
fantastic.
An out of phase sandling. Yeah, so it was in full breeding plumage in January, a couple of years back now, and standing right next to one that was that nice, living up to its name, being very white. So, we had it's a fascinating photo of these two birds standing right next to each other. And that was a snap with a little Nikon Coolpix happy snap camera straight through the scope. But when I get this bad boy cranked up onto the end of my scope through a proper mount, I'm expecting to be able to have a lot more fun.
I'll be very interested to see how you go with that. You keep me in the loop, because I'm about to buy a couple of cameras, and that's one of the ones that I'm looking at. I'm going through that micro 4/3 or full frame. I'm just having that debate with myself at the moment. So
I would say, depending on the size of your hands, this camera will be easy to use or not, because I just think that grip, getting your hand, that actual part there, getting your hand in, could be a little bit dodgy if you got
big fat fingers.
It's a little. As soon as I got this camera, I thought this is a little one for girls who are blogging, because it's made for little small hands, and it's made.
That's what it's really been designed for.
But sure, I've seen blokes, pretty buffy blokes out there using these as well. But I think, how comfortable are you when you just could have got the big DSLR, the big buffy one?
That's right.
But all the good features. It seems to be quite good.
Okay. Well, this segment brought to you by Canon.
This part of it, Well, of course, there is the what's the other? Sony have an equivalent as well.
Yeah,
an equivalent model.
The A7 or whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. I did look at it, and there was, I can't remember. There's only one issue that swayed me to get this, because this would suit my purposes better. For other people, they might find that this little Sony blogger, or vlogger camera, I think they're more marketing it at, is perhaps better.
And I'll throw in the Lumix G100 as well, which is
all right. There you go.
Panasonic have got one too. That if they've got the autofocus issue, I mean they're designed so that you can use them. You can use them as a webcam. You can use them as your vlogging camera. You can use them for good video as well. Really helps to your lens system, I think, at the end of the day. Now let's get off cameras, because I do a whole nother.
Oh, right, we got more.
What's your bucket list bird?
It's probably a common bucket list bird, but I think it'd have to. Well, there's probably many, but the one that immediately comes to mind whenever anyone asks this is just the palm cockatoo. That trip to Iron Range is required. Go and get the palm cockatoo.
And every time I think about the palm cockatoo now, I can't go past the fantastic photos that Christina Zdenek, have I pronounced the surname correctly? I've probably butchered it. Sorry, Christina.
I've seen a few lately. I'm not sure who.
They're in Australian Geographic. Did use them, but there's just some corkers She got very lucky, I think, on the day. But actually, she probably didn't get lucky. She's probably a really, 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 really good bird photographer. So,
Yeah.
but they're stunning. That one.
Some of the pitters too have to be on that bucket list. So,
You're
I'm
going
not
to
a
love the
rainbow
next
pitter.
episode. You're going to love the next episode of the Bird Emergency. Actually, it might not be the next one, but it's going out on on World Migrating Bird Day, World Migratory Bird Day. So that's 14th of May. I spoke to David Tan about pitters, and he grew up in Singapore, and he sent me through all the photos yesterday because we're talking about migrating pitters, and of course in Singapore a lot of pitters hit the buildings and die. So he sent me through all his photos for the episode yesterday. One of them's an alive pitter that he's holding, that he's doing something with. The rest of them are dead ones that have hit buildings. But sad. But pitters, yeah. So which pitter do you want to see? Which one in particular?
Well, it would be the rainbow pitter. It's the rainbow pitter that I struggled with. Yeah. There's a few, because now we start to talk about the birds that I dipped on and things like that. And it's, yellow rump mannikin, like what's going on with that bird? Like, that's a really difficult one for me. It's a real bogey bird.
Is that because you've turned up somewhere and people say, oh, there were 30 of them here yesterday?
Well, you only have so much time that you can spend in some localities when you're moving around and far from home, and it comes down to you're either going to get it in one of several locations or you're not. Several locations over several days or you're not. And we all know, even we go to our favourite places, sometimes a bird will be just absent. That can be quite regular, and that's what's happened to me with that. Same with there's a list of them, but northern shrike tit, as we were alluding to before, that's also eluded me.
Really?
Yeah, I keep dipping on the northern shrike tit.
And what's your bucket list location?
Oh, best location.
No, not your best one. The one that's on your
one
list.
I want to go to. Yeah, because I can start to think. Where's one that I? Well, it would be Iron Range.
You haven't
to get
been
everything
up there
that's up there. Yeah, so getting up there between Iron Range and Bamaga, because I'm going to go there. I'm also going to be after the butterflies. Yeah.
Let's veer off a little bit. When did you get right into butterflies? Because so many people, they just go, oh, that's a nice butterfly. Same as plants. People will be out in an amazing environment. Like I'm bonkers about plants as well, but they just don't see them. They just go green plant, brown stem, green plant. So when did you really turn on to butterflies?
I started to realise it was a problem when, just before I went to Broome, and I had American tourists on bird tours in Sydney, and they'd say, what's that butterfly? And I didn't know. And next thing, I'm the warden at Broome Bird Observatory, and this started to become a bit more of a thing. And there were also people, I had assistant wardens who were kind of into butterflies too. Now, one in particular, you might know Chris Sanderson. He was one of the assistant wardens at the time, and he's a bit of a bird man and ecologist kind of guy, based in Queensland. And he was very keen on them. And so we started photographing them around the observatory, and that's when I went and got Braby. I went and got my first field guide. And as soon as I got that, and I realised this is quite easy, I was in. And ever since, and it's become I say birding is my religion, birding is my life, but photographing butterflies is my hobby. So it's been
nice
about
hobby to have.
15 or more years I've been into butterflies now. So, and it's great. It's very enriching when you're a birder. Like if there's not a bird around, there's often a butterfly there, and tourists do ask you, and as well, it's part of nature's calendar. Yeah. To learn the lives of butterflies and learn their comings and goings, and I find nature's calendar very, very important to know as a bird and naturalist. to enrich the experience and to make it real and to understand what you're looking at.
No doubt, no doubt. So, what's your favourite birding spot that you have managed to go to?
I'm such a creature of habit that my favourite
local patch.
Yeah, it is my local patch. Yeah, but it's there's some great places, little places I've been to, like this soak. You couldn't call it a billabong. It is a soak. A last remnant of a place called Cheese Tin Creek, which is when you come off the Gibb River Road onto the Great Northern Road there or Northern Highway, whatever they call it, north of Kununurra, and where the Gibb River Road hits it, just a little bit down from Gibb River Road, you'll come across a bridge and it goes over Cheese Tin Creek. And you park there well before sunrise and you walk about 1 kilometre or so, maybe a bit more up this creek during the dry season. And the river's quite dry, and you'll start to see finches and pigeons and honeyeaters, all kinds, starting to move along as sunrise hits. And you just hide yourself in some long grass and look down, and you will get pictorellas, you'll get gouldians, you'll get everything, all kinds of parrots, all kinds of finches, all the pigeons, honeyeaters, raptors, all coming in to this waterhole. It's just quite fantastic, yeah. It's called Cheese Tin Creek, which is a very interesting name. But other places too, like I love the northern beaches of Roebuck Bay. How can you, or east of Roebuck Bay on what we used to call a gravel pit. I think they give it another name now, but it's just out there on Roebuck Plains, and it's an extraordinary bush birding habitat, this real open tropical savanna woodland. And the birding there's amazing.
This isn't part of my normal questions, but how often do you get away, Ricki, during the year to go birding somewhere that you wouldn't call your local patch? And I sort of say that's maybe 150 Ks. I kind of think that's the stuff you can get up in the morning and go, yeah, I'm just going to go there. But how often do you get away during a year to a sort of planned expedition?
Well, the last 12 to 18 months, during the COVID thing, it's 2 years now, really,
That's
isn't
right,
it? Yeah, that hasn't happened for me much. I notice a lot of people do, especially in the last 6 months when things have eased a lot more. A lot more people are getting out and doing the miles. I haven't yet. I've been too busy. But generally speaking, I like to get away a couple of times a year to go somewhere, like head into Western New South Wales or jump on a plane and go and do, the Larapinta Trail or, somewhere like that. And that's another bucket list location, Larapinta Trail birding. And down the Santa Teresa Road and that kind of thing, like heading into the drier, more arid part of the scene. So, a couple of times a year if I can. And just it recharges your birding batteries. It challenges you again. And, it's special, I think, to go away to these different places and that aren't your usual.
So here's the hardest of the bird emergency questions, Ricki. What's the best bird?
What's my favourite bird, or what's the best bird? What's my favourite bird? Spotted parrot.
I'm going to leave it to you to interpret that question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, it's a bit like asking someone your favourite song. Once you get to my mature years, you've got a lot of favourite songs to choose from.
That's right. You have to go, which genre?
Yeah, you can ask me any day. So I've got like a top 20, and then you can, and it could be any one of those. So, I really just love a yellow-throated scrub wren. Really love, and a lot of people know not to ask me too much about birding because I say, how was the birding? I'll say, it was fantastic. And I get enthusiastic and I'll say, well, what? You see, like fantastic views of a brown thornbill. That'll make my day. A fantastic view of this very common bird. The acanthosis, I love them.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I've lived in a couple of places where we had family groups of superb blue wren or superb fairy wren, brown thornbill, striated thornbill, yellow rump thornbill, all in the same area, but occupying slightly different niches in the habitat. But getting to know them, getting to know the group, best birds, like brown thornbill, amazing. Striated thornbill, what a personality, and what a and white-browed scrub wren, of course. I don't reckon.
So this is birding.
That's right. That's getting to know know the birds. That's as exciting as when I saw a grey falcon, which was, and as the Prime Minister and everyone being in Gladstone this week, I've only seen the crested barza once, and I saw a pair of them, and I'd pulled off the road to have a sleep and cook and make some dinner when I had my Land Rover. Outside of Gladstone, there's this bridge, and you can turn off, and there's a parking bay down the bottom. So I drove to the end of it where there's the river. I think it's the Boyne River goes past, and I was, got my table out, making some brunch, I guess it would have been. And just laying back on the grass and looking across at a tree, and there's a pair of crested barzas just chilling, just resting for the afternoon. Never seen them before, never seen them since. But there we go.
See, they were a garden bird. I live on the Northern Rivers. I live in a little village called Calgum, west of Murwillumbah. And you could basically see the Queensland border from my balcony, my veranda. And a regular garden bird was the Pacific buzzers.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Crested hawk, Pacific barza, Australian.
Yeah, well, they are a crested hawk.
What are we going to call them? But they're all the same. They're all the same bird.
Yeah. Well, this is common names, isn't it? So
that's right.
Which is, it tells us about culture and birds.
But you knew exactly what I was talking about, didn't you?
Absolutely, because I know it's a crested hawk. There are other crested hawks.
That's right. Well, I grew up calling it a crested hawk, but then all the books now call it a barza, so I'm starting to talk about the barza,
Yeah, Pacific barza. Yeah. And which is quite an odd name, but it is the Pacific barza. And yeah, we get them in the Royal National Park a fair bit. I usually get them a few times a year, and you hear that lovely call, that quick, way up high when they're, I guess it's a territorial call. And you'll see the male and female circling up quite high above the canopy, making that call. And for the first time ever, I recorded a superb lyrebird mimicking that call this year.
Wow!
So I've never heard that one before from a lyrebird.
Well, you'll have to go and listen to our Albert's lyrebird episode, Ricki. I think you'll enjoy that. We haven't had to do a superb lyrebird one yet, and I hope we never do, because I try and focus on endangered and threatened species. So hopefully we never have to talk about the superb lyrebird.
Yes.
Well, I reckon we've introduced bird watching. Actually, let me talk about exactly what we've called it. What have we called it? It's just the bird watching. Just bird watching.
It's called bird watching. Yes, yeah, because that's what it is, and that's what the course. It's bird watching. It's not birding. It's just bird watching.
Bird watching.
And I've kind of reverted a little bit to calling myself a bird watcher rather than a birder.
Yeah, I'd never really called myself a birder. I've never referred to myself as a twitcher, but that's what others tend to, especially the Brits. The Brits understand twitchers, or people who go bird watching. Yeah. Americans talk about birders. It was always bird watching when I was growing up. I never heard anyone talk about a birder. You might be a birdo, though. People would call you a birdo.
Yeah. But I often do describe, if I'm around other birders, I describe myself as a birder, but generally I would say I'm a bird watcher. But twitch, The only time I've ever done a twitch, I drove down the coast towards Port Hedland, Anna Plains actually. I drove from Broome to Anna Plains down on the highway to Port Hedland to see pied honeyeaters. Got them, twitched them, got them, drove back there. 3 days later, a flock of a dozen flew straight over the observatory. And I thought, what the hell? Yeah. And so I decided that's a mug's game. But I remember on the first day when I arrived, or the second day, I turned up at the bird observatory to start working there. The place was overrun by twitchers from Melbourne who'd come up to see a rosy starling or a rose-coloured starling, depending what you want to call it. But it was, a vagrant starling and, 50 or 60 kilometres inland. And so everyone jumped in a car to go and see them. One guy came a day or two later. I can't remember who he is, and he might be watching, and he'll know who he is. But he came up, he dipped, went back to Melbourne, and a day or two later we said it's back. We found it. He flew up again.
Turned up again. I think I've seen that story. I think we can identify that person without too much trouble. It's amazing, isn't it? I'm not competitive, and I couldn't tell you what my number is, what my life number is. But do you know yours?
No, I do know it's in the high 500s. So it's not a huge one, but I know it's somewhere languishing in the high 500s until I go to somewhere like the southwest corner of Australia, Western Australia, which I haven't done, or Tasmania, or up to Iron Range.
I'm hoping to go to Sulawesi sometime in the next year, and that should increase my my numbers.
We're going to pelagic. If you go on a pelagic, you'll increase your numbers pretty well. But I love talking about seabirds, but I'm not that keen on the idea of going on the boat because it'll always be a stinking day. I mean, I grew up at the beach and going fishing and having yachts and competitive sailing and all that kind of stuff. And I find it hard to find pleasure in being on a boat. I'm not really a boating myself, but I think if you can overcome that I get the sense that once you're out there and they've put your chum in the water,
it just feels like work, like when you're sailing, you're always trying to win and all that. And I don't relax when I'm out on a boat. So So I think that's one way. I've got most of the of your shorebirds. It's only those rarities and semi-vagrants, occasionals and things like that, like little ring plover and that I lack. Oh, World Plover Day is coming up too. I'll get a few.
Well, I do love a plover. I love the little plovers. They're another that's in my top 20. I'm a big fan of the red cap plover and the double-banded plover. Gorgeous little things. Love them.
Oh, I'll put the plug out now. Just about to do some bird emergency merch, so it just made sense, didn't it, to make a hoodie?
Right, yeah. You've got a hoodie.
There's a hoodie coming. I'll just let you know. So, I haven't had the prototype. It looks beautiful, but I'm not sure whether the printing will match what it's supposed to look like. So I've got to wait until it turns up. But they'll be in time. Plover Appreciation Day is not till September. So but yeah. There we are.
We can all have the kit for the day, though. By then we'll be able to have the kit.
Got a whole lot of merch coming, so I've invested heavily. It'll probably be spectacularly unpopular, but we'll see whether bird merch.
It's always frightening to get to go the merch. So
I had these great big ideas. So big pecker underpants. I'm just putting that out there. So, anyway, I've probably shot my credibility completely now with my stupid merch ideas, but we're out there. So, Ricki, uh, are the numbers coming in? Like, do people have to rush to enrol?
I have people enrolled, but no one is officially enrolled until they pay.
Until they've sent the check.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
you've only had a couple of people so far who've pushed the, go to cart, pay. So
Cool.
yeah, and so it's still early day. I only started promoting it last week. So
that's right. Well, you sucked me in, so there we go. I responded quick, smart. So I think it'll be really great. My thoughts are, if you're somebody who has just, especially over the lockdown period, the pandemic, and you got into the birds in your local patch, and you really are at that stage where you want to know more, and maybe you've invested in one field guide and you think, oh, I really want to know more and I want to get out there and perhaps build some confidence, I reckon this is probably the kind of thing that you could do. I reckon you can do.
Yeah.
I reckon you probably cram 10 years of learning about birds into 6 months.
That is precisely the idea, is for me to give that experience that I've had to somebody in 6 months. So, decades of birding experience into 6 months. And I think that that's kind of the goal. So people, just get a better roadmap of the journey and learnings of birding. And I think that if I get a lot of interest from people outside of the Sydney region, I'm going to have to come up with a fix to be able to create a course for people who live.
Might have an idea for you there, Ricki. Which
I've got a few ticking over on that, but whether you get other people who are good birders to run sections in other parts of town, or I don't know, but
I think there's some possibilities there that we might see how you go with this one, and and now that the pandemic restrictions are basically gone, fingers crossed we don't get them again. I reckon there's some real opportunities for people all around the country to learn via your course, and then find a way to do the practical stuff, and getting out there with some local birders to build confidence, to get the confidence, and then go and tackle your first birding expedition, where maybe you head down and you do a 10-day trip of Tasmania, or you go and you go to Longreach and Winton and go and check out what's out there.
Bladensburg National Park, fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, it really opens your eyes to what all the different regions of Australia have got to offer. And hey, let's not only talk about Australia. You can learn birding. You can learn these skills from anywhere in the world. Ricki, if someone contacted you from America, would you be able to find a way to change things around and maybe teach them some parts and that they might need?
I think you modify. I think you have to learn to modify and come up with something that works for them and in their place. I do feel though that if we get too far afield, that other elements that I've never experienced might come into it. Like I have the only experience I have birding in the snow is, riding snowboards through, Threadbow and things like that. So, birding in the snow is another area that I have no experience in. So those kind of things, I would say, almost franchising this out to locals would be more the go.
I guess what I was thinking more about is helping people with those bird ID skills, in that these are the things you got to look for. There are common skills to learn about birds and what bits of a bird to look at to make identifications. And of course, understanding the niches or the zones in a habitat that you see a bird, which can then help you give you clues to.
Oh yeah.
to
Well, they all are, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you think you've got a striated thornbill and it's in the middle of winter, you're unlikely to see it on the ground.
That's right.
It's likely to be something else.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's probably not tussie hopping, but it's probably not doing that.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Well, dear watcher, because this will probably be a YouTube thing prior to the course, I think, Ricki. I'm not sure whether we'll get it out in the podcast feed. I'll throw it out in the podcast feed, probably very, very, very unedited, just so the podcast listeners who aren't hitting YouTube will know that you're there. And then we'll maybe catch up as you're going along, and maybe you can tell us, all of us, a bit about what you're learning about running the course and how it's developing, and maybe some of your students will have some amazing sightings that they've shared with you, or some really exciting experiences that they've had. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I did want to ask you this. It might fall like a lead balloon, but have you seen that clip of Ann Jones and Sean Dooley where they see the orange-bellied parrots?
No.
Well, it's on YouTube. Look it up. Actually, I'll put a link, and you can find it. But the excitement of that Ann Jones conveys, having seen the two orange-bellied parrots. I think there were three of them, and Dooley too. Dooley getting super excited too was amazing. That's what birdwatching is all about. That excitement, whether it's an orange-bellied parrot or whether it's the first time that you see a pink robin, or even, for some people who've never actually seen an owl, They hear them, but
first bird of the season, like returning migrants, those kind of things, it's always exciting. Birding's I find it very hard to say that you can walk on a trail and not have it deliver something exciting. Yeah. And if it's not, then it's you've got to go deeper.
Yeah. So look, we've got some people in the watching. Is there a question that anyone has that they would like to ask before Ricki jumps off? Maybe something you'd like to know about the course that we haven't sort of covered. Here's a really good opportunity, or is there something you want to tell us? Grant, shut up, something like that. So, just give it a minute or two and see if someone types in. Housekeeping too. I've been teasing about Bird Nerd Trivia when that's coming back. I'm so sick of the election that Bird Nerd Trivia will be reappearing tomorrow, and then it's going to run a couple of times a week right through the election campaign. And we'll probably focus a bit on Australia for the whole period of the election campaign. But if you want to do well in Bird Nerd Trivia, please do brush up on your national birds and your state birds. They're just a bit of a hint. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ricki, well, nobody's posed a question to us, so I'm guessing that they're all going off to aussiewild.com.au, or they're waiting for me to create the link to the course at the Bird.
Right. Okay. Well, it seems you covered everything then. So,
I reckon so. Well, I'm excited to see how it goes. I've always wondered how teaching a birdwatching course would go, especially jamming in all that sort of bird physiology and whatnot. I think it's a great endeavour. I hope it's really successful, and I hope lots of people enrol, and that it'll become the biggest thing for learning bird watching in Australia.
Well, I hope it. Yeah, I do hope that it does come off and it helps enrich lives and maybe becomes something that I can give to other people who have expertise in this area to help teach birders in their region as well.
Now I'm a little bit afraid. We've got Lucian the Tormented has a question now. Where has Lucian come in from? I must have a look. Lucian's coming from Twitch. I can always guarantee that this will be entertaining. Lucian, go ahead with your question. I am looking at your comments. So you have a question. Lucian's emoji is a frog by the look of it. Might be a frog being dropped into boiling water. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Lucian. The floor is yours. Maybe that was his question. I have a question. I have a dream. I mean, that's spectacularly very disappointing, Lucian. We're waiting. We're here with bated breath. 3, 2, 1. Well, thanks so much, Lucian. I hope that I hope you go through life doing a bit more than just asking questions. Hopefully, sometimes you find answers. Ricki, it's been nice to meet you. I'm surprised we haven't crossed paths before, but it's been nice to meet you, and I look forward to getting some updates on how the course is going. I wish you well, and I especially wish your students well, and that they become committed bird nerds for life.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.